call this meeting back to order, and I'll ask our clerk to rise and report. We just had a 1-hour closed session, and she will now report on that closed session, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council met in closed session at 6 p.m. Council received information and provided direction to the township solicitor regarding a potential acquisition of land matter. Council reviewed legal advice respecting the short-term rental bylaw, and also received information on an ongoing litigation matter.
Okay, thank you. We'll now rise and have our national anthem, please. Okay, thank you. We'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples, acknowledging the One Bowl and Spoon Treaty. And I'll now look to Council to see if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof. Seeing none. Okay, we move on to Mayor's remarks. Please note that the meeting proceedings are being broadcast live, recorded, and made available through the Township website and youtube.com. Today is National Indigenous Peoples Day. It is observed on the 21st day of June to recognize the summer solstice, the day of maximum daylight, and its important is to the Indigenous peoples. We recognize that here in Wainfleet. The farmers market is up and running for the season. Please stop by the pavilion behind the arena each Wednesday afternoon until mid-September. And it was there last week. It's doing well already. Police Service Board meets next on Thursday, June 23rd at 9 a.m. and this will be live streamed. Regional Council also meets Thursday, June 23rd at 6:30, and this is a Zoom meeting. Also, just to announce that construction has begun on Lakeshore Road between Bessie and Quarry Roads, and that area is closed to traffic, and so residents down there will note that there may have some issues getting around there. So just to make sure everybody understands that, knows that. And for specific details, you can check our website. It's all on the website. I'm happy to see the return of our Canada Day celebrations this year, with festivities commencing at 5 p.m. and that's behind the arena and the grounds in that area, and there's a community barbecue again this year, so that's great to see that happening and get back, and fireworks and other events. Flyers were sent out to every home with that information on it. So our next regular meeting on council will be held on Tuesday, July 12th at 7 p.m. I now look to councillors for comments, and I know Councillor Cridlin has some comments, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. There's three things this evening. Beaver Creek and Big Forks Creek floodplain mapping session is tomorrow from 6 to 8 p.m. in Wellandport. Again, more details are on the NPCA website. This is a public information session. Also, the next NPCA full authority meeting will be July 15th at 9:30. And I will also be attending the first Niagara Transit Commission meeting June 28th at 5 p.m. at the Region. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there, regarding previous council minutes, are there any comments or corrections on the draft attached to the agenda on those minutes? Okay, seeing none, motion being that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held May 31st, 2022, and the special meeting of council held June 7th, 2022 be adopted as circulated. I have a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Cridland and Councillor McClellan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None. That is carried. Thank you. We now move into our public meetings. We have two public meetings on the agenda this evening. And the first is regarding the zoning bylaw amendment, number Z02-2022W. So, in accordance with the Planning Act, a public meeting is held for applicants to present their proposal to the public and council, and for council to receive comments from the public. Staff will not make a recommendation, and council will not make a decision on the proposal at this evening's public meeting. A planning report will be brought forward by staff and considered by council at a later date. As a member of the public, you are welcome to request to be notified of any future meetings respecting the applications. Please provide your contact information on the sign-in sheet located at the back of council chambers, or contact the deputy clerk. And please be advised that the sign-in information will form part of the public record of these applications. And I now look to our planner, who is going to speak to the first issue here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to all of council. So the first application, the subject lands are located on the south side of Feeder Road West, between Conlin Road and Wainfleet-Dunville Town Line Road, and are known municipally as 33553 Feeder Road West. The subject lands are 29.4 hectares in size and are currently being used for residential and agricultural purposes. The subject lands were the subject of a consent application, which was provisionally approved by the Committee of Adjustment at the June 15th hearing. And that application was made to sever Part 1 as a surplus farm dwelling and retain Part 2 for continued agricultural use. So the proposed amendment is needed to comply with provincial, regional, and township planning policies for surplus farm dwelling severances. And the application proposes to rezone Part 2 from an agricultural A2 zone to an A2-1 zone to prohibit dwellings, and an A2-71 zone to recognize a reduced lot area of 28.383 hectares, where 40 hectares is required. In terms of some of the comments that we've received on the file, so the application was circulated to external agencies, township departments, and the public on May 19th. I've received formal comments from Haldimand County, who noted no concern with both the consent applications and the proposed zoning amendment. Enbridge and the township's drainage superintendent provided comments specifically relating to the consent application, both noting no concern, and then the drainage superintendent had some conditions regarding apportionment agreements for the CSW drain. There were no public comments received for this file.
Okay, Sarah, thank you for your report. Are there any questions from council? Okay, seeing none. I now ask for anybody in the gallery, if you would like to come forward and have any input on this issue, you're more than welcome to do so, please. Anyone in the gallery, please come forward. Okay, nobody's coming forward. Next steps to our planner, please.
So a planning report regarding a complete review of the application will be brought forward at a later date. And that report will detail a review of all of the applicable planning policies. So I will note that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting and or make written submissions to the township regarding the proposed amendment before the township gives or refuses to give approval to the application, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so.
Okay, thank you. That concludes the public meeting for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. If you wish to be notified of the decision of council regarding the proposed application, you must make a written request to the deputy clerk of the township. Thank you. I now move on to our second public meeting on the agenda this evening regarding zoning bylaw amendment number Z03 2022W. And in accordance with the Planning Act, a public meeting is held for applicants to present their proposal to the public and council, and for council to receive comments from the public. Staff will not make a recommendation, and council will not make a decision on the proposal at this evening's public meeting. A planning report will be brought forward by staff and considered by council at a later date. As a member of the public, you are welcome to request to be notified of any future meetings respecting the applications. Please provide your contact information on the sign-in sheet located at the back of council chambers, or contact the deputy clerk. Please be advised that the sign-in information will form part of the public record for these applications. And we look to our planner again to speak to the second public meeting issue.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the subject lands for this application are located on the east side of Morgan's Point Road, and it also has frontage on Fowler Road, which is located to the north and the south. The subject property is currently vacant and is known by its assessment roll number. The subject lands are 4.9 hectares in size, and as I mentioned, currently contain no structures. The surrounding land uses are primarily residential, with some agricultural uses to the east. So the subject lands were the subject of 4 consent applications, which were provisionally approved by the Committee of Adjustment at the June 15th hearing. And those applications were made to sever 3 lots and retain 1 lot, and to complete a boundary adjustment with 11451 Morgan's Point Road. So the proposed zoning bylaw amendment before council is required to address one of the conditions of those approvals of the consent applications. And the zoning amendment proposes to rezone the subject lands from an agricultural transition A1 zone to a residential lakeshore RLS C10 zone and an RLS C10-44 zone. And that exception 44 permits a minimum lot area of 0.79 hectares and a minimum lot frontage of 41 meters for Part 4. The proposed zoning aligns with the lakeshore residential designation under the township's official plan. In terms of some of the comments received on the application, so similar to the last application, we circulated this on May 19th to relevant agencies, township departments, and the public. In terms of agency comments, Niagara Region noted no objection. Bell Canada, Enbridge, and the township's drainage superintendent provided comments specifically to the consent application, and all 3 noting no concern. And I have not received any public comments for this file. And if I may, Mr. Mayor, before getting into questions and comments from council, I do have the applicant's agent here this evening, Aaron Butler from MPG Planning Solutions, and I'll ask if he wants to come up and say a few words before we get into comments.
Okay, that's good. If they would, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Sarah said, my name is Aaron Butler. I'm the Development Principal with NPG Planning Solutions out of Niagara Falls. And I'm joined by my colleague Lee Chang Lim, who's on Zoom this evening, and our clients, the Mickelsars. Really just here to be available for questions if anything comes up with Council. But as Sarah said, the application's for a zoning amendment to permit the creation of 3 new lots and 1 boundary adjustment. So a total of 4 new residential lots with 1 boundary adjustment. And as you know, the applications were provisionally approved last week by the Committee of Adjustment.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council? Any questions? Councillor Cridlin.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm going to just start by saying these lots were already provisionally moved, from agriculture into development. So it's pretty much a given these are to be developed. So I just wanted that preface. Not knowing specifically what the client wants, I know that's all been handled by staff. I have not had anybody from the ownership side reach out to me, but I would look at these properties now in this particular desirable area and want to understand how many lots we could reasonably fit in this land. So I understand the land will certainly put the constraints on any builds and serviceability. But if this moves from 3 to 5 to 6, or what all agreeable parties would see, I'd like for staff to consider, the regulations I know that hold us back are obviously regional and provincial, but there are tools out there that, like condominiums, weren't designed for us, but perhaps we could see if they might help us, do a little bit more development where it makes sense to do so because there is no agriculture. So those are my comments. It's something that might be something we haven't done before, so I would leave it to staff to consider that and see if there's more interest when we bring it back. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any comment from the developer's perspective?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to speak to the comment, in Ontario, we are bound by as you said, Councillor, the provincial plans and regional plans, which really direct greater development that's greater than 3 lots to settlement areas. And of course, as you said, you're potentially constrained by the land itself. So through this study, through this application, there was a hydrogeological study that was completed, and that recommended about the lots being 1 hectare in size. And that's why you see a total of 4 lots, basically, which is in line with provincial or regional policy and the constraints on the property. But certainly, if staff wishes, we can sit down and speak with them and assist with forming a response to council as part of the recommendation report.
Okay, thank you. And I look to our planner, Sarah. Do you have a comment there as well?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just echo what Mr. Butler has said. So we are constrained by provincial and regional policy in terms of the amount of development outside of our rural settlement areas. The property is constrained by other factors as well. So, but I can certainly provide more analysis and information regarding those policies through my recommendation report. The proposal that was before the committee and before council this evening kind of vetted out through the pre-consultation process in terms of what's permitted by policies today. So,
okay, thank you. So that's something that we can take a look at, but there's a lot of policy in place there that we must adhere to. Are there any other questions to either Sarah or the developer? Councillor McClellan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Sarah, do you have a map of what the 4 house lots look like?
Can you pull your mic up a little bit?
It's on. It just... Okay. That better?
Yep.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, I've pulled up the severance sketch on the screen here. The part 1, 2, and 3 are the new proposed lots. Part 4 is the remnant lot. And then there's a small area around an existing lot of record that's undersized. And so the applicant is proposing to give some additional land to them so that they are closer towards the minimum lot size.
Thank you. That looks great.
Okay, any other questions before I go to the public? Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to address Councillor Cridlin's concern about possibly more, I mean, if the whole land itself is under 5 hectares, so the limit is really 4 anyway. Unless there's a whole bunch of changes to the rules about making them 1 acre, but in that sector, the rule is 1 hectare, I believe. Is that, or am I wrong?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the policies, yes, so the minimum lot size is 1 hectare. We do allow them to go down as small as 1 acre if the hydrogeological study supports a smaller lot size. But 1 acre is the absolute smallest that we could go under our policies.
So if I can continue, but the hydrological study doesn't recommend that, so not likely would would we be looking to go smaller anyway, if that's what the study says? Is that fair?
Yes, so the hydrogeological study supported the current proposal in terms of the lots that were provisionally approved by the committee. It did also, and that was conditional on specialized septic systems. So 3 of the lots have to have 50% nitrate removal, and the 4th lot has to have 75%. So, well, the Hydro-G didn't specifically say that 1 acre couldn't be supported because it commented on the current proposal. It's quite likely that smaller lots may not be supportable for septic servicing.
Just one final comment, and this is what the applicant's asking for in the first place. Right. One plus hectare plus, or am I missing something again?
That's correct. So that's what the applicant has asked for.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Cridlin, you wish to speak further? Go ahead.
Thank you, through Mayor. I think I've heard that staff will do a little bit of work on seeing about if there's another tool. I'm not the expert on what other possible venue there might be to help a rural community do the building it needs to do. So I certainly respect there are provincial rules. Sometimes in other jurisdictions that is challenged and there's a support to do that. This just looks like a prime opportunity if the parties and the science is there. So thank you very much.
Okay, your point is taken, and ultimately it does come down to the landowner, what they wish to do in their application. So, okay, any other questions from council? Okay, I now open it up to the public for any comments. Anybody in the gallery wish to come forward and speak on this issue, please? I ask again, anybody in the gallery would like to come forward? Okay, seeing none, I'll go to our planner for the next steps.
So I'll be preparing a planning report, which will provide a complete review of the proposed amendment and the applicable planning policies, and that will be brought forward at a later date. And again, I'll mention if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the township regarding the proposed amendment before the township gives or refuses to give approval to the application, the person or public body may not be added as a party to a hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes the public meeting for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. If you wish to be notified of the decision of council regarding the proposed application, you must make a written request to the deputy clerk of the township. And that concludes the public meeting. We now move into delegations, and we have one delegate this evening. And Karen Alexander, Invasive Species Center, regarding the European water chestnut rapid removal program for the Welland River. Is she here?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. I'm joining you remotely from Amherstburg, Ontario. Thanks for having me this evening. I will go ahead and share my screen. I have a presentation ready to go.
Just Mrs. Alexander, just so you know, you have 10 minutes to do your presentation, and I'll let you know when it's 9 minutes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I appreciate the warning. As I said, I'm Karen Alexander. I work with the Invasive Species Center, and I'm here to present to you on a program that we're launching this summer in the Welland River. First, I would like to introduce the Invasive Species Center. I'll explain what it is we're up to and take a few questions. I'd just like to acknowledge the Invasive Species Center is located in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people. We are a nonprofit organization, and we do work to connect stakeholders, knowledge, technology, and we work pretty hard to prevent aggressive invasive species that cause harm to Canada's economy, environment, and society. One of these species that is of concern to us right now is European water chestnut, or Trapas natans. This is a species that is native to Europe, Asia, and Africa. It likes lakes, rivers, streams, ponds with soft substrates, full sun, and nutrient rich waters, and it will grow abundant, as you can see in the image here, to waters about as, they like 2-meter deep water, but it can be found in water up to 4 meters deep. And this is a real threat to the economy, our recreation, and ecology. So the Welland River is obviously of extreme value to the Niagara region, and we do not want to see this species established here, and we don't want it to get further into Ontario. This is a rapid response program because it is just arriving in Ontario, and I actually have a map coming up in a few minutes. What we really are quite concerned about this species is its impact on recreation in aquatic systems in the Great Lakes. This picture in the middle is a sharp-edged seed that the plant will drop, and it develops into these very thick mats that cover the water. It drops these stems, well, it drops the seed, grows from the stem, and then puts this rosette out, and each rosette can drop another 10 to 20 seeds, and the cycle continues. This is an annual plant, so if we can remove the biomass before it goes to seed, we have a chance of controlling the spread and stopping its establishment in the river. It is a prohibited species in Ontario. This means that it is under the Invasive Species Act illegal to import, possess, release, transport, breed, grow, sell, lease, or trade. And anyone boating must avoid spreading the plants and moving the plants used like overland if they get attached to boat materials. It's also important to dispose plants so that they don't end up back in the water. Here's the image of water chestnut. This thing was, they think it arrived in North America in the late 1800s and by Cambridge Botanical Garden in Massachusetts. There was a gardener there. He released it in several ponds, and it's been spreading across the north or the New England area of the US, and it's just arriving in the Great Lakes now. Ontario is fighting back in a Voyageur Provincial Park and around Wolfe Island in the Kingston area. Are two programs ongoing to curb its spread, and they are winning the battle, and we're building our control program off of what they have learned. In the Welland River, we have these 4 known locations that came into us via EDMAPs. These reports were made by a recreational paddler that just knew what this plant was, put the EDMAPs reports in, and the Ministry of Natural Resources, Forestry, Mines, and the NDMNRF, I apologize, was made aware of the observations, and they brought the Invasive Species Center in to help them address it. So we went out last summer with Ducks Unlimited Canada and paddled the river. We started over at Chippewa Creek Conservation Area and made our way all the way to the city of Welland. And what you're seeing here is our mix of results, where the yellow dots are where we found floating plants and we removed them from the river. The green line shows where the mass infestation is. But I say mass, it's more of a broken up piles within the river. It's not a full infestation yet. And then back toward Wellandport, we found many floaters and removed those too. When I say floater plants, that's partly how the plant is spreading. It'll break off from the mother mat, and these floater plants kind of move downstream and establish another colony. So it's important to get those every year, and we did last year. So we've kind of contained it to that center piece of the river, and now we're going to go back out and get the rest, hopefully. We also put these signs in, and if you have used any of these boat ramps, you may have seen them already. Both conservation areas along the river and the Wellandport Community Center got a sign. So I did mention a bit about control, but what we know is if we remove the plants before it goes to seed, within 4 years, you see a 95% reduction. And then you do have to follow up for up to 10 years to get rid of anything that regrows. We know the Welland River population is not 100 greater. We don't have any large stands yet, nothing larger than 100 meters squared that we could see. So we're going in with a hand pull program to address what we are seeing in the river. This is kind of what we're after this year. We're pulling together partners, low-tier municipalities. The NPCA is partnering with us. We've reached out to the Peninsula Paddlers and the Burt Miller Nature Club in Niagara College and open to anybody else who's interested in helping. The program this year is funded by the NDMNRF Emergency Reserve Fund. This is money that they have set aside with ISC for a number of years and have authorized its use on this program this year. We did search for funding through DFO and MECP, but have yet to hear whether those applications are successful. So we're moving ahead with the $50,000. We're going to hire we have hired for Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters Hit Squad program, and that's funded through Canada Summer Jobs. And then we have a team lead that we've hired to supervise the on-the-ground activities, and we'll be doing hand pulling from canoes and a small motorboat. We start training next week, June 27th to 30th, and then the team will be on the river daily, weather pending, July 4th to August 26th. We also have a community engagement piece, which is an important piece of the program. We have a communications kit that I'd like to share with you after this presentation. And there's a few asks, and one of them is specific to the township. And we're doing paddling tours to engage the local community, teach them what water chestnut might look like, and encourage reports so that if it has showed up in other tributaries, any recreational paddler who is taught what it looks like could potentially help us make sure we're getting it all. We're also invested in this for the long term, and we intend on pulling resources together to make this project happen every year and keep kind of going after what we missed and what continues to survive for as long as we need to. We are working closely with the NPCA. They are helping us co-host these tours. We have a biomass disposal plan that they've authorized the use of their 2 CAs on the river. We can put the plant biomass there. It quickly decomposes as long as it doesn't get back in the river. And they're helping us with the OFA Hit Squad team and community outreach and engagement work. And this is just another slide, I guess, outlining how they're participating, all in-kind support. And then I come to my request of the Township of Wainfleet, looking for your support in community awareness and engagement. We have a communications kit that I can share with you, and it includes an event poster, example social media posts and images. If you don't mind putting a connection from your website to ours, residents can find more information. And then we have a landowner letter that would be really helpful if you wouldn't mind directing that to waterfront landowners along the Welland River between Welland Port and the city of Welland. I'm not sure how much of the river that would be Wainfleet and how many landowners that would be, hoping that they would each receive a copy of that letter. It includes information and asks specifically things such as, do you have an emergency exit for the team? Do you have a river access you wouldn't mind us using if needed? A dock, perhaps, that they could use for health breaks? Any way that the landowner may want to assist the program. To invite council, staff, anyone in the township to the July 7th 9 a.m. event, doubling as a media event. We're hoping to have some reps from the NDMNRF out, and we really encourage you to come out if you're interested. And the July 16th event will be a general public and open to anyone as well.
Okay.
And that's that.
Thank you very much, Karen. A lot of important information there, and we just don't need another invasive species here in Southern Ontario. So questions from council to our presenter, please. Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not so much a question, but the Niagara Central Dorothy Rundling Airport has a boat slip or plane slip for float planes that is in the Welland River, and I'm sure you could use that, and there's parking there if you just give us a call. We'll make arrangements to give you a key.
Thank you. Is that the airport by the E.C. Brown Conservation Area?
Yes, and our slip is immediately east of that.
Okay. Thank you. Can I find contact information just online?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, the requests of the Township of Wainfleet, anybody wish to make a motion regarding those points? And Councillor Cridland?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. See if this will work. A motion to work with the ISC on the appropriate steps that staff see that we will have a connection and be able to contribute. That would be the motion.
So you're asking for, in the motion, these 1, 2, 3, 4 points for the staff, because it involves us connecting to our website, social media posts, and letters to the landowners. So you're looking to have that in the motion?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. It would be all those steps, again, subject to staff's review. We're not going to get a staff report back on this, so if there's something that might preclude us from doing a link or something, that they'll follow our protocols. Thank you.
Okay, seconder for that? Councillor McClellan, you're seconding, or you have a question? We're just right in the middle of the motion, though, so we can add that.
So I was going to add it to the motion.
You
Go ahead.
seconded it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Any discussion?
So now,
No, go ahead.
Lenny Arts and his group did the floodplain, and he has all the landowners along the Welland River. I'm sure if you get it to them, they can get a mail out to everybody, and staff won't have to go look at who owns land on the river.
Okay, we can look at that. Any other discussion on this motion? Look to our CAO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council. If there is general support from council, I throw out one additional sort of means of expressing council's concern. At the CAO table, I know there's been discussion about various concerns and initiatives that are underway across Ontario and across Niagara, particularly in light of the upcoming AMO conference later this year. While we don't have anyone confirmed from Wainfleet is going, there are other municipalities attending, Welland and West Lincoln, for example, both of which have identified their concerns regarding this invasive species as well. So if there is concern from council expressed by way of this motion, I will share that information with those municipalities, and perhaps there will be some additional support sought through the various opportunities for municipalities to meet with members of Parliament at the AMO conference. So if that carries forward, I will share that information as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of that motion, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, Karen, for the presentation. It was good and definitely enlightening. Like I say, we don't need another invasive species going here, so thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Have a nice night.
Bye. Good night. Okay, we're going to move on to item 12, fire staff reports, and we'll go to the chief to speak to that, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The first report this evening I have with me is the project management team from Urban Environmental Management, David Schramm and Eric Duva, and they are here to prepare or present the monthly project summary report, receive any questions from council, and then any subsequent reports following this will just be included as part of the council information package, as it will grow and be quite lengthy pretty much every month. So with that, I'll ask if Eric and David want to come and present a summary of the report.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm not sure if the reports are in front of you or not. I've got a hard copy here that I'll just kind of leaf through and speak to. And if there's any questions, I'll do my best to address them.
Just perhaps they're a little louder into the mic there. Thank you.
Go a little closer. All right, how's that?
That's great.
All right, so this is our first monthly report. This will be submitted monthly after we receive the contractor's draw that's been certified by the architect. These reports will follow those draws, so the The costs drawn against the contract will always match the draw to make things easy as we go month to month and try to keep things as straightforward as possible. There may be additional change orders that have been approved since the draw has been paid, and those will be captured in the subsequent report. So just going through the report, we've got our cover page and agenda. Then we go into our overall project budget. So this budget is exactly as was presented to council during our special meeting. So this is just a high-level summary of it. Later in the report, we speak to the costs against it. Our next section is our project schedule. In our project schedule, we talk to the contract type, a couple key points in the schedule, mainly that the contractor has mobilized as of May 18th, and their anticipated completion is May 8th of 2023. In this section, we also include a definition of substantial performance and occupancy. We've in the past run into some discrepancies, some misunderstandings of what these are. So in our report, we define these and define what the metrics are for them for this project. We also list the township responsibilities. There's a number of items that the town is responsible for that the contractor does not construct or provide. This is as it's been designed. So just a couple quick things that are noted in here. Typical office administration, furniture, equipment, the specialized fire station equipment, compressors, special cleaning equipment, extractors, the IT, AV, and security are all township supplied. We do have these these items allocated in the budget under the owner's allowances. Our next sections, we have a highlight of the contractor's schedule, just a couple key points, couple key dates in there. So this will be updated every month as things are completed. We'll update these dates, or if a new schedule is issued, we will revise the dates that are forecasted. The next section is just a documentation, kind of housekeeping record of what's been submitted, what's outstanding in terms of permits, general requirements, environmental approvals, and just an update on other services. So when we have to deal with Hydro One, Enbridge, or internet services provider when we get to that point in construction. The next section, section 4, is just a very high level of what activities have been completed in the past month as per the report. This will be a growing section, so it'll every report we will add another 4, 5, 6 points, whatever's relevant, just to highlight what's been completed during this reporting period. Next section is our forecasted cash flow. So we've received a cash flow from the contractor based on their anticipated spending from large material procurements or expected large deliveries on site. So the cash flow they've provided, we've shown here in a table. We will track against it the actual monthly draw as well as the cumulative. And on the following page, we graph that. We use this as a tool to monitor their progress along with the schedule. Next section is the proposed change orders. So to date, there's been 3 proposed change orders that have been issued. So you can see those there, as well as request for change orders. So their proposed change orders come from the design team. Requests for change orders are coming from the contractor. To date, we've had 4. Next section is potential changes of significance. This is where we will talk to if there is something that has come up but has not been formally documented. We will highlight this here for the township so they're aware. There's no surprises. As soon as we're aware, through Morgan, the township will be aware. The next section is our approved change orders. There's been no change orders that were approved on the first draw. As you can see from the previous section, there is some change documents that are out there, but they were not on the draw, so they've not been reflected in this report. Those will be on the subsequent report. Just going through the change order section, you can see how we've broken it out. So we will track change orders based on the change order type, whether it is a soil condition, design team error, omission, or change. Owner requested existing conditions or credits. And then the design team errors, omissions, and design changes, we break down by discipline as well. just additional information so we can see where the bulk of these are coming from, if it's a cause of concern, or if there's something else at play that needs to be addressed. So the next few pages are just more or less placeholders till we get more change orders. Hopefully not, but they're there just in case. Next, section 11 is allowances. So within the contract, there are several contract allowances. So what this is a pot of $325,000 that is within the contract that is awarded through the township's approval for matters that were not explicitly designed. So the first one that has been issued is for door hardware. So that was awarded to William Nell and Company. So these awards come out of the pot and do not change the overall contract value. So the next section is our cash allowance draws. So this just summarizes the draws. So on here you can see the column on the left lists all the cash allowance items that are within the contract. Next section, section 13, is the certificate of payment summary. So this here will again be a total growing summary as they are issued, just as a record. Section 14 and 15 are just, we'll just record, again, more project documentation if site instructions are issued or if specific requests for information to the township are put forward. Our next section, 17, is potential project risks. In here we highlight a number of project risks. These are everything from schedule risks, overpayment to contractor, the risk of the pandemic, goods and labor supply, health and safety, environmental, and contractor performance. Each one of these we talk to excuse me, what the risk is, as well as the risk level. Section 18, other project matters. There's no other matters at this time, but this section will be used to document any issues, potential disputes, any key discussions. This will be a chronology of events as they happen, and will be a running total as the project progresses. So if we run into issues and we need to document them, they will be in here recorded, each report after report. Last section is 19 for the closeout documents. Again, this is more just record keeping, keep tabs on what has come in, what hasn't. This will pretty much stay like this till the final report. Then we have a list of consultant subcontractors, everybody that's been awarded or involved on this project, just to see who's working on it, where they're from. We do have a number of local and close to local contractors and subcontractors working on this job, which is great to see. Then we include a general floor plan. So if we do reference something in terms of location of a change or a proposed change, there is a floor plan here for quick reference. And then the last real section of this report is just some photos. So in here we've got the groundbreaking and the post-demolition photos after the house and barn have been demolished. On the back page of the report, we include just a quick project fact sheet, some of the key features, highlight the budget and the completion date. So that's a quick overview of our report. If there's any comments, questions, anything else that anybody would like to see on this, we're happy to revise, amend, include on future reports.
Okay, thank you very much. I look for a mover and a seconder to receive this report, please. Councillor Cridland and Councillor Gilmore. And questions, comments? Councillor Cridland.
Through you, Mayor, again, just thank you for going through that so methodically. I have now made a reference so that I can go back and actually listen to that again, so it was so clear. So thank you for that in-depth review. Obviously, the transparency is what we would have expected, and so it's so nice to see it delivered. This is probably more of a process question. I think I heard that these are reports now are going to go into, in future, they're going to get larger, and they will go into our correspondence information package. As councillors, we can easily pull them from there. But they will be static until you then monthly complete them. So It's not going to be updated dynamically. The idea is that at some point after month end, maybe you could give me a rough idea when that would be. They would then have to still come in weekly to that next package. So I'm just sort of trying to figure out when I would look for, let's say, June 30th, and then try to figure out what would be in there in between reporting periods. That's a little bit long, but otherwise a big thank you.
I think I understand what you're asking. So our reports will always come out following the contractor's draw that's been certified for payment. Typically, the contractors will submit that either right at the end of the month or the first few days of the following month. With prompt payment, which this contract falls under, the project team, the prime consultant, tries to review these within the first 4 or 5 days. So we should have the certificate issued within the week of receiving it. So normal circumstances, we would have the certificate of payment within the first week of the following month that they're claiming for. And then our report would be probably a few days following that. So kind of with this one, as it's dated the middle of June, that probably would be a typical date, a safe date, if you want to set up a recurring reminder to go and look for it.
Okay, thank you, Will.
And just for a little more clarification, council information packages are released weekly. You will not see a report like this every week. You will see one basically every 4th week. Hopefully that clarifies a little bit more too.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor McClone.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I just have one question here. On item 7, on May 30th, there's an upsized septic tank from 6,800 liters to 18,000 liters. How did that get missed, and why is it getting changed so quick?
We'll look to our presenter for that, please.
So that was an error on the designer's part. Their drawing had incorrectly specified the tank size.
So they're responsible for the difference in price?
Unfortunately not.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much. Seeing no other questions or comments, motion is on the floor. No further discussion. All in favor of receiving that motion? And that's carried.
I'm good, yeah.
And okay, thank you. That's carried. I now look to the chief to speak to the second component here, the award of tender for utility pickup truck.
Again, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My second report this evening is to bring to council the award of tender for the pickup truck that went out. As we discussed back during budget time, we had submitted for a pickup truck. At the time when we did the budget deliberations, I had used the same tender specifications that Public Works had used just 2 years previous. We sent that out. When I sent the tender out, I actually contacted all of the dealers for all the major manufacturers within a 100K radius to make sure that everybody had notice of the tender, so that way we didn't run into the same problem that we potentially had with regards to the SUVs. I did receive correspondence back from a couple of them saying that all the 2022s have been sold out and the 2023s, good luck getting them. At the end of the closing, we received one bid from Niagara Motors, and that bid was for $70,790. However, they did note that will be for a 2023, which we can order, but the 2023 price list has not been published yet. So part of the request is that we negotiate with the vendor to go through the order process, but cap it that at no point do we go 10% more than the bid that was tendered.
Okay, thank you, Chief. The motion being that this report respecting the award of tender for utility squad pickup truck be received, and that the fire chief be authorized to purchase one new 2023 4,800 kilogram crew cab, 4-door, 4-wheel drive, 2500 GMC Sierra HD pickup truck from Niagara Motors being the only bid submitted in the amount of $70,790, with the final purchase price to be no more than 10% over the 2022 bid received. And that the fire chief be authorized to proceed with the purchase of all required equipment to complete the project with an upset limit of $35,000 plus HST. And that the unbudgeted overage be funded from the equipment reserve. Mover seconder for that, please. Councillor Cridlin and Councillor Van Vliet. And I'm sure we're going to have some discussion, please. Any discussion on this purchase? Okay. Seeing none. All in favor of that motion? That's carried. Opposed? And we have one opposed. That motion is carried. Move on to the admin staff reports. And we look to the cancellation of refund of property tax for 2021 and 2022 taxation years. And I think Ms. Louie is zoomed in, so we'll have her report, please.
Thank you. So through the mayor to all of council. So ASR 15 is a staff report pertaining to a section 357 application, which was made by a resident for the removal of tax assessment associated with a house that had been demolished. So MPAC did pick up the building permit and added the new assessment for the new construction. However, they did not pick up the demo permit and remove the assessment that was associated with the previous house. So the municipal portion of the write-off is $1,745.56. And this is the first Section 357 application before council for the year 2022.
Okay, thank you. Motion, admin staff report ASR 15-2022 respecting the cancellation, reduction, and refund of property tax be received, and that council approve the attached application number 2021-03 pursuant to Section 357 of the Municipal Act 2001 to write off taxes in the amount of $3,736.11. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor McClellan and Councillor Van Vliet. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And we now go to Community and Development Services staff reports, short-term rentals, and we look to Ms. Earl to give an overview of that, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Through resolution on June 7th, council directed staff to prepare a report to outline the framework for Planning Act regulations for short-term rentals. The report serves to provide council with this framework and options on approaches to moving forward with the short-term rentals units programming, which includes remaining status quo with advocacy, regulating STRs through official plans or zoning bylaw amendments, the license-only option, which we are currently underway, and alternative options, which include a combination of any of those items I just listed, as well as the possibility of implementing an interim control bylaw to place a temporary freeze on the establishment of any new STRs. This will allow time to review, research, and develop appropriate planning policies, and that will specifically address the STRs. As council has recognized that implementing the new licensing system has proven to be a very onerous task, especially with the quantity of staff time and resources that it's taken to this point in drafting the draft bylaw. I recommend that staff be directed to continue this valuable work and provide council with a revised draft licensing bylaw and program information at the next available meeting. To achieve this, staff are seeking direction on a number of the draft bylaw items that I had previously provided in the staff report from the last council meeting that was deferred. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we'll just hold the motion that's in front of me here, and we'll go straight to questions and discussion, and we'll probably develop a motion out of that. So I'll look to the councillors for questions or comments on this. Councillor Van Vliet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. To the public, it doesn't look like we're doing much. So just wondering if the CAO or Lindsay could explain, without getting us into trouble legally, that we are actually working on this.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, perhaps I'll start, and then perhaps Lindsay could speak to some of the more sort of historical efforts that that have been undertaken by council in reviewing other bylaws and that sort of thing. I guess the key thing I'd like to point out is that this is a very complex issue to tackle within a municipality, particularly a smaller municipality such as ours, where we don't have the resources of a large planning department or a large licensing department to sort of lean on. These are all sort of tasks that are being sort of undertaken with internal resources to the best of our ability. And one of the things that staff have been struggling with, and I know that council has been struggling with, is that we're in a situation where there are a number of complaints and concerns that we've been getting, but those complaints and concerns for the most part are fairly localized and are dealing with a very small number of, I don't want to say bad apples, but a small number of isolated incidents that are creating problems. And in order to try and address those problems, both staff and especially council are very cognizant of the potential impact of addressing those specific issues in a broader regulatory environment, which could have the effect of impacting potentially hundreds of existing short-term rental operations that are not creating problems, that are not resulting in complaints, that are not, I guess, impacting the community in a negative way. So if I could, it's extremely a complex situation. Again, council's grappling with it, and in doing so, it has already taken steps to modify some existing bylaws, and right now trying to identify the best path forward for the township that, again, recognizes the concerns while still trying to deal with, or perhaps not deal with in a negative way, the good things that we have already happening in the township. So I guess that's my initial comment, and perhaps I could look to Lindsay to perhaps review some of the past bylaw amendments in other regulatory bylaws that we've enacted through council's direction to sort of deal with some of the problem areas.
And if I may, I'll just add on to that too. This is a new problem throughout the whole province. It's in the last 2-3 years has really come to a head. I've had an email conversation with another municipality up north who is suffering exactly the same issues. So are we going to get this right the first time? Probably not. We're going to have to get it in place, and then in a year we'll find we have to tweak it and tune it, and we look to other municipalities to see what they're doing, to see what works for them. So as the CAO said, it's extremely complex here, and there's legalities on every end of the problem. So we're doing our best. We hope to have it in place not too far down the road, and be able to look after the problem places and not have it impact those who are running a really good business. So it's complex. We ask you to be patient, and everybody in Ontario's having the same problem, and so we're all sharing information on it. So look to Lindsay, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for those words, both to the Mayor and the CAO, because they really captured, I think, the stresses and concerns of council and the amount of work that has gone into it to date, both with the reporting back to council, the research that staff has done, looking at other municipalities, given their examples, their experiences, kind of learning from what's worked and what hasn't worked. And we're trying to find a one-size-fits-all approach, which Mr. Mayor, you're right that it may not be right the first time. So what I'm proposing is that we still move forward with that licensing bylaw that's been drafted with our solicitor, reviewed by our senior leadership team, and that we can continue this kind of pilot program to see how we're going to operate this likely in the new year. So it's going to take some time to get that program just right. Council will see it likely a couple more times to make sure that they're happy with any draft licensing bylaw before it gets passed.
Okay, thank you. It's also important to note that our new noise bylaw that we brought in last meeting is a huge step forward in dealing with the problem STRs. So there are now some teeth to that bylaw where there were not that many before, and we can begin to, as we work on the short-term rental bylaw and how that's going to look, we can at least have the noise bylaw that we can do some enforcement. So it's a step in the right direction, and we're hearing the complaints from those who are being affected, and we're working on it. So, but that is a good thing to know that the noise bylaw is in place, and it's fairly effective as well. So I think we came up with a good solution to that, and so it's quite good. Any other discussion? Councillor Cridlin.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. And again, I think that sets us up for, talking about more what we might like to go forward in terms of maybe a recommendation tonight. So I think I've heard that we can do this as a pilot when we start to lean into the licensing. We'll be getting feedback all along, and so that will still be in the background. But you do need that direction to start now and continue, so some sense of that for tonight. And I really like this interim control bylaw. I think we've been working on it. That is something that's come forward now out of all of our joint efforts. And that, correct me if I'm wrong, but that stops new ones now. If it's enacted perhaps today, or if we do a second reading, I would be prepared to do this one today because of the future concerns aren't there. So that takes care of everybody that's already existing. That's good. They can see that the problem isn't going to get worse. So I really like maybe the hybrid approach, the interim control bylaw. Again, if that's it, there's no more. That can be the headline. And then I think maybe, when we look about the licensing, maybe we can do something like a cap. So I would like people that are all doing the right thing to get in there with their license or whatever. Maybe there's a form that doesn't mean you're a license yet, but you can get into where the first 200 or the first 100 or the first 75, those are people that are watching tonight, and those are people that we can only probably afford a certain amount for a phase one or for an implementation. We don't know what those costs are going to be budget-wise or anything. So I'm really worried about what this is going to look like later, but if it's working, then the value will be there for the citizens. So let the discussion happen, but I would certainly support the interim control bylaw with the direction that the other is being worked on. I wouldn't want to lose that yet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm just making some notes here for a potential motion with that included. Councillor McClellan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. And I get it. You talked about this as a province. This is the world. This is everywhere it goes. I must have read 40 different bylaws just in Ontario that went in, and some of them are good and some of them aren't so good. And, this is it's like every other bylaw. It's there for 7 to 10% of the people that don't play by the rules. And, you mentioned that before, and that's what it is. One thing I'd definitely like to do, this is going to take a lot of staff time. I think this should be like our building department, and whatever staff time is required or costs us, that should all be recouped through the licensing of this, so that it doesn't cost the taxpayers a dime. It costs the businesses that are running that. That's what these are. They're businesses. And I agree with Councillor Cridlin that I think we should do the interim, so we stop it now and cap it. So that's my comment on it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment? Councillor Van Vliet.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Lindsay. So if we put in the interim bylaw tonight, yeah, it's on. Am I not allowed? Okay, I'll turn my big girl voice on. I think I already mentioned this. Can we contact the realtors that are advertising selling those houses in the problem areas of short-term rentals, can we tell them to please stop?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the implementation of the interim control bylaw is under the Planning Act process. We have seen a large intake in new realtors advertising these for sale properties as short-term rental potential. There's nothing in law that says you cannot contact them. So if that's something that that's open for discussion, so I don't see an issue with that.
Okay, because I've noticed that it's not our, shouldn't say not all of them, most of them are not our local realtors who are advertising them as STRs. And I do know that one in the problem area just went up for sale. So if we could nip this in the bud, that'd be great. Thanks. Okay,
thank you. And anything further before we float a motion? Councillor Cridland.
Thank you, through Mayor. If we can also look into whether a schedule of penalties and amps can apply to that interim control bylaw, and that if it can, then you can perhaps we can add that at a future date. But if they could just take it away to look into that.
I see our planner shaking her head no, so I'll look to her for comment, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor. It is regulated under the Planning Act, so Planning Act issues would be dealt with through the court system.
Okay. So let's start a motion here and see how we go. So the first part of the motion would be that we receive this report, and that Councillor Cridland, you would like to see the interim bylaw begun to be worked on by staff, and what kind of time frame are we looking for that on that?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I think this is prepared and attached that we could decide to approve it tonight. So perhaps we'll just go to the clerk to confirm what the details are on that timing.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to all of council, the bylaw is attached to the report. It's not on the agenda for consideration. However, if council's direction is to have that considered tonight, then I'll prepare a motion to have that considered.
So that'll be a separate motion from this one here. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll do that separately. Then we're looking at the licensing bylaw. I'm hearing that wants to be part of what we're doing, correct? Okay, so the motion then is fairly simple, that this report be received for information and that staff be directed to provide a revised draft licensing bylaw and program to regulate short-term rentals in the Township of Wainfleet for review by council at the next meeting. And that the interim bylaw is going to be considered, but separately this evening, under our bylaw section. Okay, anything else we want to add to that, Councillor McClellan?
Just to be clear then, so that if we're, under this motion, we're asking to carry on with the licensing.
Yes.
Direction to bring back to us at another meeting.
Yes.
But there will be a motion to vote on.
The interim will be separate, and we're going to do that tonight.
That's all I want to make sure.
So we're putting the stop, hopefully, as we put the stopgap.
You kind of joined the two of them together there, so I was just
we put the stopgap in place, and then we start the interim immediately if it's approved. Okay, mover, seconder for this motion, please. Councillor Gilmore and Councillor McClellan. Any other discussion on this existing motion? Councillor Gilmore.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe I heard Lindsay ask for some other figures and numbers as part of the report. Does that need to go now? When do you need that information?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, I have asked for it a couple of times, so if council wanted to discuss it tonight, that would be wonderful. If not, I can prepare what I think would be a great recommendation and give you another draft. I will review those items. They were support for the annual applications instead of biannual as originally proposed. The number of occupants that were going to be limited to 2 people per bedroom plus an additional 2. Permitting guests needed to be discussed, and timing of those guests. Are we considering those as occupants or not? As well as the fee schedule.
Councillor Gilmore. It's complicated for sure, so I would look for you to come back with that myself, but Councillor McClellan?
So I just have one question. You said 2 people per bedroom plus 2, so that's 4 people per bedroom? No. Or it's 2 people per bedroom plus 2 additional people in the house? Okay, so that's got to be made crystal clear, because it'll be 4 people in a bedroom before you know it, right? So that's just how you write it up. You better.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just wanted to make a comment on that. Council also has the option of limiting number of bedrooms, and we saw that come back through a lot of the public comments. So that's hard to regulate if we have a 4 or 5 bedroom home and only limit it to, say, 3 bedrooms, for example. The only way we could regulate that is actually doing internal site visits, making sure that they're only licensed for 3 bedrooms, for example. So it may be difficult. So that's something that council would like to consider.
Sorry, go ahead.
To you, Mr. Mayor. This is the planning. So I know previous council, we took over all the septic beds. Apparently, we know what every septic bed is supposed to be good for all throughout town. I don't know if that's on record somewhere or not, but if it said that the house was allowed for 6, then that should be the limit. It should be based on what the septic is done. If somebody wants to go and improve their septic so they get more people in, I don't have a problem with that, but it better meet all the rules and regulations.
Okay, Lindsay's noting that. That's a very good point. Councillor Cridlin, you were next.
Thank you, through Mayor, and through to Ms. Earl. In terms of timing, so again, we're going to make some decisions soon, I hope, and then will it delay it? I don't want to also get into too much of the detail yet till we then see a revised one with what you've got already. So I might like to do something with sort of like the fireworks, but I think it's important that we get you with something. Again, we've sort of discussed it may not land perfectly, but we now have the winter to look at before those regulations are actually going to be finalized. So I would be okay if you've got enough direction, leaving that for another meeting if it doesn't put us too far behind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this is good. What we're doing is, I see Lindsay's been writing feverishly there. She's taking down all the notes that we've talked about, and that'll come back at another meeting, probably the next one. The key point this evening is getting our interim bylaw in place, which is our stopgap, and then we can fine-tune the actual bylaw for the STR. Councillor Gilmore, did you have more there?
Well, I'm not sure about more. I guess I'm more concerned with figuring out how to regulate the people that are there versus limiting the number of people that are there. I mean, the number of people, that has an impact, but the problem is around how they behave, not that there's a big group there. If you can have a quiet party and have 40 people there, they don't cause any trouble. But 4 people can screw it up for everybody. And this has been going on in all sector of life ever since time began, you know. And so that's a bit of a problem. And the other thing, well, I totally agree with Councillor McClellan about user pay. My problem is that, again, the same principle, the 7 to 10% rule, screw it up for everybody else, and all those good people get caught in the crossfire of a heavy fee schedule, because this is going to add a lot of layers of bureaucratic administration and costs to look after, and 90% of the good people are caught in the crossfire paying for the actions of a few. So I don't know how to fix it. Those are just my concerns. But I think that, yeah, we're on the right track. Unfortunately, we've been on this track for a little too long, and the pace of our progress and every other progress in municipalities moves too slow. However, the interim control bylaw at least puts a stopgap measure till we can figure out a lot of these other concerns. So I don't know how to answer some of your other asks at this point. I think you've heard us, and perhaps we should all just correspond with you with our ideas and let you summarize those rather than try to debate it at this forum.
Yeah, and to that point, Lindsay's comments, this may be one of those areas that we don't get right the first time, and we have to tweak it after a year, and we find out that, oh, okay, this isn't working. One of the things I look at is the user pay aspect that you mentioned. Everyone has a modest fee, but as the complaints come in, that fee annually escalates incredibly, and so that the good people who we never hear about pay their $250 fee or whatever, and the places that we get constant complaints about, $250, $1,000, $2,000, and the way it goes. I don't know how we do that, but that's something that, that way we're not penalizing the good people that much. The $250 just covers off some of the cost of us administering them into the computer system and registering them and that sort of thing. So I don't know the potential of that, Lindsay. That's something that we could look at too, and that way the good people who never have a problem, we never hear about, don't get penalized. I think that's a great idea, and I'd love to see that come to fruition. I think Sean was next. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Was Sherry next? Okay,
go, yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Sherry.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Lindsay, that was my question, and that is the question I get a lot from, let's just say that the good STR people, is what the licensing fee is going to be based on. Is it going to be based on the size of the home, the number of bedrooms, where it's located? Because the good people are like, well, we have the same people, it's our cousins, it's our uncles, it's whoever renting. They know who it is. The bad ones, we have no idea who they are and how many are there. So I'm just wondering they're wondering how the fee is going to be levied.
Through the mayor, and thank you for that question. There was two areas that we looked at when we were deciding on drafting the fees. One is how many licenses are we expecting annually? What is the cost of staff time and resources to implement a licensing program? The information that I've provided to council shows that it'll take about 100 applications to fully cover the costs of an administrator. That would be some sort of bylaw officer / administrator to run the program. Of those 100, we did not want to penalize some of those smaller cottage-type dwellings that aren't those big 3, 4, 5-bedroom homes on the lake. So what we did there is we looked at the other municipalities and how they structured theirs. Some municipalities just have one flat fee. Some other municipalities have seen success in having those smaller fees for 1 to 2 bedroom homes and then larger fees for the 3+ bedroom homes, because they are larger homes, they are going to be renting them out for an increased value. So that was our approach.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gilmore was next. And then
Thank you, Mayor. Just circling back to your comments, I think it just tweaks something. The demerit point program, I think, needs to be torqued down a fair bit tighter so that you don't get all these strikes till you're out. Like, we've done that in the last number of months with other things, and we don't need to be generous with the demerit points. That needs to be strict. And yeah, I'm not saying after the first time you get thrown right out, but the rope needs to be shortened up a touch.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McClellan.
So two things. One, I agree with Councillor Gilmore on the demerit points, but I think it should go a step further. Your demerit points should carry on for 36 or 48 months, because you could start renting May 2-4 weekend and by August have 8 points because you've had 4 bad people in there and you have 4 noise complaints and they're 2 points apiece. And then so you talk it down, then the next spring you start renting out again and you got 4 bad people in there again, and every year your neighbor has to put up with this before you hit it. So if they carry on 3 years, 4 years, whatever we decide, then if you get 8 points in your first year, you better keep control of your fines going up, and then everyone after that, I don't know if we can suspend a license, how we do it. I don't just what the technicalities are going to be, but they should be an ongoing thing, so it's not an thing. So that's one point. My other question is on our local motels. That's who these guys are competing against. How does a motel get taxed? Like the Port Motel or the Wainfleet Motel for his rooms, does he get a tax based on beds and bathrooms, or just beds, or is it market value? How does that all, and I don't know, and I don't know if anybody at this table knows, but that's something I'd like to know, because if they get billed on beds, their taxes are based on that, then that's how, or their business license goes on that, then we should be doing the same thing on these.
Mr. Mayor, taxation for those types of commercial operations are based on commercial assessments derived by MPAC, and they use different types of formulas for different types of business operations. Honestly, just off the top of my head, I do not know the formula used for motels in Wainfleet. But again, each business classification is looked at in a different way by MPAC using provincially standard protocols that apply to those types of establishments. Residential taxation is a much more simpler type, and because most STRs, all STRs, are occurring in residential properties, the residential taxation applied to STRs likewise is handled by MPAC in accordance with their residential taxation policies.
So if I can.
Okay, go ahead.
They're running a business out of a residential neighborhood. They should be getting tax billed as the guys they're competing against, which is the Port Motel, the Wainfleet Motel, or whatever other organization is here.
That's, yeah.
And again, that's provincial tax policy at play that we do not have the ability to directly influence, short of doing some sort of lobbying at the provincial level to look at potential changes. But that is not something that we have the ability to influence. And I think I see Lindsay reaching for the microphone button.
Thank you, and through the mayor, if I may add, and not that I want to create extra work for my team or our tax department, but some municipalities have gone as far as incorporating a accommodation tax. So that's a whole nother process, similar to what you see in the tourism areas. I know the City of Toronto does that for their short-term rentals. So that is another option. If council would like to explore that or require more information, we can definitely provide that.
Okay, thank you. That could be the second edition of our next year or the year after, or the next council. Councillor Gridlin.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I'd like to call the question.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Okay, so the motion is on the floor, and that was to direct the licensing bylaw and receive the reports. So it's moved and seconded, and all in favor. And that is carried. Thank you. And the interim bylaw will come up at the end when we do bylaws. Does anybody need a recess? We're not too bad, so okay, we'll keep going. Review of correspondence. One item listed on the agenda this evening, it's a Rail Safety Week proclamation. And any discussion on that? We all saw the letter there from CN Rail, I believe it was. Does Public Works have that? It's, I'm missing that part?
Yeah, you missed the
okay, thank
roadway.
you. She likes to do that to me once in a while, just not put something in there so I get lost. Oh, there it is. Thank you. Thank you, Meredith. She's great.
Tossed you right under the bus.
What am I looking at here? Richard, would you speak to this, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'll speak to it. It's the Public Works Staff Report, 012-2022. It's in respect to award of for our asphalt rehabilitation program. This program, we went out to tender, and it's for the roads that were presented at the council during budget presentation. It includes Dilts Road, Concession 6, Phillips Road, O'Reilly's Road North, and Tunnicliff Road North. During the tender opening, we received 3 bids, and our recommendation is to award it to the lowest bidder.
Okay, thank you. So the motion being PWSR 12-2022 respecting award of asphalt road rehabilitation tender be received, and that the manager of operations engage the services of Walker Construction Limited to complete the 2022 asphalt road rehabilitation as outlined in the tender. Mover, seconder, please. Councillor Gilmore, Councillor McClellan. And any discussion? I will say that our clerk is fantastic, by the way. She has so much work to do, it's not a big deal. She has an odd oversight like that, so. It's just I get lost very quickly when it's not there, so. Okay, mover seconded, all in favor, and that is carried. Councillor Gilmore, opposed? Yeah.
He was pulling one of my stunts.
Okay, now review of correspondence. Okay, one item of correspondence listed on the agenda this evening, Rail Safety Week proclamation. Any discussion on that at all? Everybody had a look at that letter? Any motion to support that? And okay, Councillor McClellan, you make that motion?
Yes.
To support rail proclamation. Okay, any discussions? Need a seconder for that? Councillor Cridland, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to our bylaws now. And I'm going to look to the clerk to read those because we have the interim bylaw in there as well.
Okay, that the following bylaws be read and passed this 21st day of June 2022. Bylaw number 29, 2022, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 8, 2018, being a bylaw to prohibit and regulate animals being at large. Bylaw number 30, 2022, being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 27, 2019, being a bylaw to establish an administrative monetary penalty system for non-parking related offenses. And bylaw number 31, being a bylaw to impose interim control on the use of lands, buildings, and structures respecting short-term rental units within the geographic boundaries of the Township of Wainfleet.
Thank you. Can I have a mover and seconder for that, please? Councillor McClellan and Councillor Gilmore. Any discussion on those? Councillor Cridland.
Thank you. Could I just double check with the clerk then, please? That last one doesn't require any other procedural piece from us. We can just go ahead and vote on that tonight. Thank you very much for the clarification.
Okay, any other questions, discussion for the bylaws? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Okay, seeing none. I look for a motion to move into closed session on, what do we have, 5 items here? You want me to, pardon me? I did. Okay, and those items are listed here on the agenda. Mover seconder for those, please. Councillor Gilmore, Councillor Van Vliet. Any discussion for that to move into closed? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. We're moving into closed session.